This is Doc. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We're here every Tuesday. We now have a new time from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Now, Ed and I have been fighting over the 6 p.m. slot. He finally won. And I hate that when a Democrat beats a Republican. It's just awful. Now, we have good news and bad news about the show today. The bad news is Lefty can't join us tonight, and I'm sure he was just chomping at the bit to rip into Republicans and start blaming us again from everything from the bubonic plague to, men on the moon to Frank is our producer in there. The good news is we have a replacement that's just slightly left of Lefty and just slightly... No, hold on. That'd be slightly right of Lefty and slightly left of me, the righty, Doc. Other good news about the program tonight. Frank has a grunt monkey. We haven't named the grunt monkey yet, but we do have one. Anyway, our guest host that we have tonight, her name is Phaedra Strohmaier, and she is sitting in for Lefty. And she says she has done more research in the last week than she's done in her entire life. And that includes schooling and everything else. So hopefully she's on the ball tonight. Phaedra, how are you?
Well, good, except that you just really put me on the spot. So
Oh, well, I'm good at doing that. So what in the world, in other words, how much common sense had to leave your mind in order to come on the show to take Lefty's spot?
Well, I would say probably about 70%.
70% of your common sense went out the door?
Yes. Well, actually, no. What it was, I caught your show last week when you were out and Lefty was filling in. And oh gosh, I can't remember exactly how he said this. It was something about that the longer he talks, the more interesting he gets. So he was really hoping that whoever his guest host was for the evening, that he would hurry up and show up so that... you wouldn't be out of a job. So really, I'm doing you a favor here, Doc. This is all about you.
Is that it? Well, and that's the way it should be. It should be all about me and nothing about Lefty. Anyway, so why don't you describe briefly what your political thoughts and, where you stand on the political spectrum?
Well, in the first place, I think spectrum is a little bit of a weird term. Anytime that I've ever really conceived of politics, it's not really been in a line so much as more of a circle. And if you think about one axis of the circle as the fiscal conservatism or liberalism, as you will, and the other side of it being social conservatism or liberalism, you have up in one corner, you would have the Republicans, the fiscally and socially conservative. In the opposite corner of the circle, then you would end up with the Democrats, the very liberal side of things. And as a libertarian, I don't really fit into either one of those, so I'm actually kind of off in this corner of the circle. The good news about this is that it means that I agree with you and with Lefty about 50% of the time on your show. So
you agree with both of us half the time?
Yeah, so we'll see what you have to say tonight.
All right, good. Now, well, I guess my first question is, who do you think's responsible for what has been termed the slim down as far as the government?
You really want to know?
I want to know. Let me have it.
It's our fault. Honestly, it is.
Who do you mean by our?
The American voting public.
Okay, blame the people that put them there.
Well, when you have a government system the way that we do, we're the ones who put everybody in their jobs. We're also the ones that control who stays and who goes. Now every fact that I researched is completely gone out of my head. But
oh, don't you hate that?
Yes. But it's disturbing the number of incumbents who are reelected year after year after year because of voter ignorance or voter apathy. I don't really know what the cause is, but we're the ones putting these people back. So either we must like what they're doing or we must not care enough to really do something about it. So when you end up with a situation like we've got.
You bet. Now, we're going to come back right after the break, and we're going to discuss more about Phaedra's idea, which I agree with. The people ultimately responsible is us. We're going to go through some basics of how people stay in power, and we'll be back right after the break to discuss that. You're listening to Doc and Lefty with special guest host Phaedra Strohmaier on webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty, with special guest host Phaedra Strohmaier, who has gracefully sat in so far for Lefty, and that's not a tough job. I mean, to be graceful compared to Lefty. Now, the other thing is, it's been much calmer, much quieter in between the breaks. Usually, Lefty and I are duking it out, and Frank is in the middle screaming, at least put the gloves on. And then he'll say, don't ruin Doc's face. He can't take anymore. Anyway, now, Phaedra made a very good point right before the break. She blames us, the American voters, because these people keep getting reelected year after year after year. The statistic for reelection of incumbents is 92%. That's an 8% turnover year to year. Well, that's not enough to make any significant change. And most of the time, these incumbents don't get beat, they retire. So you're really looking at, it's very difficult to unseat an incumbent. Here's the reason why. People like stability, all right? Why do you think the Russians put up with communism for all those years? It really was a stable system. You had one guy in there for 20 years and you got to deal with him, right? Americans really kind of laughed at, because our president, who's also in charge of our foreign policy, is reelected every 4 years. And so they don't know who they're dealing with. There's really no stability in our foreign policy. The one thing that I can tell you is, doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter if it's a libertarian. They all have their major donors. The socialists have George Soros. The conservatives have fiscal conservatives have Americans for Tax Responsibility, or Tax Reform, I'm sorry. And, the supposed big business, small business. The Democrats have unions. And all these people have a vested interest in having a voice so that they make sure the government money still comes their way. One of the things that people need to understand, votes equals money. And the way these people calculate if they're going to win or not is how much money per vote they spend. That's why Barack Obama winning in 2012 stunned everybody. I had a conversation with Dick Morris, and I mean the public one, about how he was incorrect about how the voting public was going to go this time. The paradigm of politics has shifted substantially. Ted Cruz is a good example of this. Here's Ted Cruz, who's broken the hold K Street has on Republicans. And for those of you who don't know, K Street is is where the big lobbying firms are for the Capitol. And he's in there for 2 years. He has no vested interest. He hasn't made his bets on Obamacare yet, unlike the rest of them. So he's up there going, hey, listen, this is what we should be doing. And we've talked about the split a lot. Well, the Democrats are having their split. So what you have are these people with billions of dollars at stake going, you know what, I'm going to throw this guy $100,000 to make sure he gets reelected. Because when you have $1 billion at stake, $100,000's nothing. So these guys kowtow to these special interests and individuals in order to remain in power and to continue the gravy train that they're on. This is no brainer. The problem is, I mean, Lefty and I have talked about this all the time. It's illegal to tell your people that you employ how to vote. So the unions get up there and tell all their union people, all of you need to show up, all of you need to vote Democratic. You have big business saying, all of you need to get out and vote, all of you need to vote for Republicans. These are the people you need to vote for, which leaves average citizens like me, Phaedra, Frank, and Grunt Monkey.
Can we call him Dave?
We can call him Dave. Grunt Monkey, you have a name now. Your name's Dave. All these people are like, well, all right, I'm going to vote for these people. The other thing that happens is you have mainstream media. Well, actually, you have all media that have an agenda, and they will spend whatever they can to make it the way they want it to be. Now, I know this segment is a little bit short. I know I've talked a lot. We're going to come back right after this break. We got a little bit of a late start. We're at a new time. We have a new Dave in here. So, we're getting the kinks worked out. We'll be back right after the break, and I'm going to let Phaedra have her say as far as what she would like to see happen different as far as shutdown goes on. Listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. You're listening to us on webcast1live.com at our new time from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. right after Ed Fallon's show. Phaedra is our special guest today. She's a libertarian, and I am going to ask her, as a libertarian, how would you resolve this government slim down that's going on?
Well, I'm supposed to probably tell you something about leave it shut down, figure out what we can cut, start cutting it. But that's actually not really what I think. If you were to ask anyone in the Libertarian Party line, that's probably what they would tell you. The absolute first thing that I would like to see happen is for people to stop playing the blame game and trying to point fingers and figure out whose fault this is, because that does absolutely no one any good. It's a waste of our time, and it does nothing but make everybody mad. The Democrats are blaming the Republicans are blaming the Democrats. About 60% of independents are blaming everybody. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. The point is that we're in this situation now, and we need to get ourselves out of it. And if I had all the answers, I would probably not be working where I do. I'd hopefully have a much better job tinkering around with all of the politics. And so I don't have all the answers, but I do think we need to just stop yelling at each other and try and come to a solution. I read on the news this afternoon that... sorry, go ahead. I read on the news this afternoon that once again, the White House is saying, well, we'll negotiate as long as we take the healthcare thing off the table, and we're not going to do anything to that, and we're not going to do anything to this. And the John Boehner also is coming back to say, yeah, sure, I'll negotiate, but we can't talk about this. We can't talk about this. Well, those are the only negotiating points that you have. So we're not doing anything. And this is just, we're getting into this whole spiral of awful news that you can't do anything about. You can't fix it.
All right. So you really don't have a solution then to this deadlock.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
All right. Let's hear it.
All right. I got a solution to this. Shut her down. Keep her shut down. Don't raise debt limit. Right? I'm going to tell you, last week when this whole thing started out, a slim majority of people, but still a majority, blamed the Democrats. The mainstream media has been relentless in dumping on the Republicans. At some point, people are going to get sick of that. You have to stick to your guns. The reason we got blamed 20 years ago is because we didn't stick to our guns. You have Ted Cruz in there leading the charge about, listen, we need to shut this down because Obamacare is a disaster. Now, Lefty last week, and I wish he was here this week to hear this, Lefty last week says, well, if we would do it the way it was intended and all this other stuff, and, how do we know? We haven't even tried to give it a decent chance. This is about like saying, well, I'm captain of the Titanic. This thing's supposed to be unsinkable. I'd better ram me an iceberg. That's what it's like saying. So this piece of, and I have gone online and said, for doctors, I know a single payer system is great. We would all like to have it, conservatives as well as liberals. But this bill is bad. And what you need to start with, if you're the Republican, is you need to say, listen, you let big unions and big oil and big corporations off the hook for Obamacare for a year. Let's give the average citizen off the hook for a year. Those that want to join up can join up, but let's delay everything else for a year like you've done with everybody else. So we can put the infrastructure in place. Now, that didn't have a very good rollout date, had a lot of things go wrong. The problem is things are still going wrong. There's a lot of things you have to put in place for the infrastructure. That's what I'd do if I was Republicans. I'd stick right to it. Say, I'm going to give the small guy the break. I thought you guys were party of the little people, right? It's not going to change if you want to join. But mandating joining should be delayed for a year.
All right. So I want to go back to something that you said.
You bet.
So you said something about that you would delay this whole process for a year. Delay the mandate,
joining.
delay all of that kind of stuff for a year. What happens in a year?
Well, what happens in the year is you get another year to get it figured out, what you're doing. That's the problem.
And the previous 3 years, is it 3 or 4 years since this has been passed?
Well, but the problem is,
what have we been doing?
Nothing, because it's been in limbo. It was challenged, and we didn't find out until, I think it was last October when they came out that said, yeah, it's the law of the land, it's a tax.
Okay, so we've had a year.
We have had a year.
So what are we going to do with another year?
Well, honest to God, you got me. I hate it.
Sorry.
Lefty is the one that's supposed to get me.
I'm sorry.
The bottom line is...
I'm not that sorry.
The bottom line is waiting for me, waiting a year is going to allow you to put the infrastructure in place that you need. We're still scrambling around in my office, trying to get compliant with the new regulations. This part of the problem with Obamacare is the regulations change just about every month or so. And that's because the regulations aren't written into the bill. They're given to that power is given to the head of Health and Human Services to be able to generate new rules and regulations as the need arises. 2, it allows your infrastructure, your physical infrastructure, your exchanges to be more reliable, let us be able to get together the numbers. When this passed, and the insurance companies still don't know how much it's going to cost. They don't know how many young, healthy people are going to join as opposed to old people like me that need health care. They don't have those numbers, and they're not going to have those numbers until they get a pot of people that are going to be joining to get a cross-section. And that's what's going to happen if you give them a year. The reason that the organization's been given a year now is strictly political. The unions hate Obamacare.
Sure.
Right? The teachers union especially came out against Obamacare. SIEU, who campaigned for it, is coming out against Obamacare. If there is going to be a time to be able to repeal it, now is the time. And you have to stick to your guns. We already have Democrats in the Senate starting to waver. All right? And you don't need that many Democrats to go, yeah, I'm going to break and go with the Republicans because this is nuts. Now, the other thing is that the Republicans have to have a plan, and they don't. And they haven't really come up with one so far. So that's the government slim down thing. Has it impacted you at all?
Actually, no. I work for one of the area's largest employers, so it's not really a problem for me. I get health insurance from my employer. My husband's a teacher, so he is receiving benefits from his employer as well, so it's not really a problem for us. I do have a number of friends, however, who have been impacted by the shutdown. They're in the National Guard. They've been furloughed and have no idea where their next paycheck is going to come from. I keep seeing news posts every now and again from them on Facebook about, well, guess I don't have drill today. This will be a fun weekend, stuff like that. And while they're trying to make light of the situation, the fact is they're not going to get paid. And I understand some legislation is in the works or maybe has been already passed to possibly get some back pay for furloughed government employees.
Well,
I'll believe that when I see it.
Well, the Republicans have sent up several different bills as stopgap measures. And each and every time the Democrats have said, well, we're not going to sign it. Doesn't matter unless it has Obamacare being funded in there, we're not going to sign it. So the bottom line is, I mean, you can say the Republicans are holding the Democrats hostage. I say they're just using good tactics to get what most of their supporters want. Do you think it's fair that they have closed national parks and made it so you can't even pull over to look when, in fact, Michelle Obama's Fit for Life or whatever thing that her website is still operational? And NPR got $500 million during the slim down when they were shutting down everything else. So pet projects of Obama and liberals are being funded, but everything else is not. Do you think that's fair?
On the face of it, no, but I would like some more statistics about what else is being shut down. I heard about the national parks thing. The national parks thing is kind of stupid, frankly. And even more so, all of the backlash that came out of that when was the honor flight that was headed out there to the World War II memorial, and World War II veterans were pulling out all the barricades and everything like that, which was cool video and pretty damaging, I think, for the Republican Party as a whole.
Why is it damaging for the Republicans? Because it was all these things are done by executive order. I mean, it's executive order is Obama saying this is what you need to shut down. I mean, that's something, that's the thing about a lot of politics that goes on is people don't understand the process.
Is that actually how it works, though? Because it was my understanding that how it works is if you don't have, if Congress cannot successfully pass some sort of measure continuing to fund the government, then it's a felony to spend the government's money. And spending the government's money is doing things like keeping national parks operational. So that was my understanding, and that it was not any kind of executive order saying you must close all of the national parks because of this shutdown.
Well,
I guess I don't know for sure.
But which national parks get shut down? Who is determined to be essential and non-essential is by executive order. I mean, Obama's the one that says, well, all right, here are the things that are non-essential. And he gives directives to department heads, and the department heads goes down, then trickles down and lays people off.
What I think is actually even less fair than whose fault it is or what's happening or pet projects of the president or Congress or whoever is how much money we're spending to keep the government shut down. It's absurd. The amount of money that we are spending to keep the government shut, to keep national parks closed, to keep park police running around with orange traffic cones, keeping people out of the parks. I read a story, something about, I think it was a park in the Appalachians that there was an inn that was actually on federal land, but it was a privately owned inn. And the owner of the inn came and decided to open up this inn because it's the height of the tourist season, and did that anyway. And was open for, I think, a total of about 3 hours. And then the park police came and shut him out. How much does it cost for these people to be working constantly on overtime, keeping us out of places? That's what really irritates me, is the money.
Well, it's just stupid because they're think about it, 100 years ago, we didn't need permission to go into Yellowstone Park as a citizen, and now we do. That's not right. That's my land. I paid for that, right? You paid for that. Dave and Frank paid for that. So the fact of the matter is that they're hiring these people to go in there and shut these things down that don't need to be shut down. This is our land and our property. Those monuments are ours. And we're spending more money to keep citizens out than we are if they just said, well, listen, we're not going to have anybody watch over, do the right thing. We're going to be back right after this break. We're here with special guest host Phaedra Strohmaier. After the break, we're going to start talking a little bit about some internal Republican politics that's going on. And really, Ed hit it a bit the last during his show. We're going to hit it again from a little bit different perspective. We'll be back in about a minute. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittysusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. You're listening to us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. here on webcast1live.com. Ed hit this a little bit earlier. They're talking about the RPI and its letter. Basically, they had a letter that came out that said, if you don't like what we're doing, screw you. Vote me out next time. Now, that's a paraphrase. And AJ said it very nicely, but that's what he said. And because he's catching a lot of flack from the old guard. Now, I'm always a big fan of shaking things up. The problem is he's not shaking them up to the point where we're going to be able to win. Then he goes out and says, listen, at these places where, with these random stops, where they go out and they do a check of your car and the rest of this, don't submit to it, film it, and, protect your rights. Well, and I'm all for that. I don't think the cops should be stopping you just because they want to catch some drunk drivers, right? Although I'm all for catching drunk drivers. But the issue goes further. This is the beginning of a police state. This is how all police states began. If you look at Stalin, Lenin, if you look at Mao, if you look at Hitler, if you look at any of these despots, it always starts small like this. And Lefty always accuses me of, conspiracy theories. Well, the bottom line is it's not a conspiracy, and it's not a theory if it's actually happening. So I'm a big fan of, restraining police rights, particularly since these police forces are ordering up-armored Humvees from the government. Unbelievable, right? They don't need up-armored Humvees. If they need that, they can call the guard. Anyway, Ed made a pretty good point. Well, it's for public safety. The Supreme Court has already said, geez, these things are legal and constitutional because they've been challenged over and over. But when I was a kid, MAD came out, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, had a giant campaign. This is when these laws were passed. These laws have been upheld as constitutional by the Supreme Court. So they're allowed to do that. There's certain things they can and cannot do, and it's a very fine line. So I don't think it's a good tactic for cities to do this. However, it's legal to do. So now he has alienated those of us who believe that you should allow policemen to do their job. Friend of the show, Tom Shaw, has blogged about it and is on Facebook about it. And he has said these are good tools to utilize. And as anybody knows, he's been on this show. That guy is a conservative, and nobody can question that. So if you have a libertarian saying, hey, listen, these are our constitutional rights, up against somebody who lives and breathes the Constitution saying, I think you're wrong, what it further does is divide the party. The Republican Party of Iowa is in good shape compared to the Democrats. That's not hard to do, all right? But compared to where they could be, they're really lagging behind. When you continually have this bickering and infighting and you can't even elect anybody at your county level, there's something wrong with the process. And the process is, like we've said, it's the old guard conservatives, the neocons, and the libertarians all fighting over the corpse of the Republican Party, because that's where we're at now. We have Sam Clovis, who's leading the U.S. Senate race on the Republican side. I can tell you, at 47%, I think Joni Ernst was 17%. Joni Ernst just got a endorsement from Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds. Well, that's a big endorsement, yet she's getting beat, especially rurally, from the polls I've seen. So the thing is how are we going to get everybody onto the same wagon, pulling in the same direction? Because at the heart of it, we all believe in the same things. We believe in being careful with your money. We believe in low taxation. Even Lefty will believe in low taxation. Phaedra, do you believe in low taxation?
Oh, absolutely. I think our tax system is horrible right now. It's horrible. I'm taxed at 28%. So that means approximately 1/3 of my annual income I don't ever see. That's what, till April? I believe till April that I start making money for myself. And I'm sure that this is stuff that you've all heard time and time again, but it's true. What do I get for my third of my income that I actually want? Not a whole lot. It's my personal opinion that the government should be as small as it possibly can be to still do things. Stuff that the government is good at, maintaining a standing army. Federal government is great at that. I'm happy to let them do that, and I'm happy to pay them to do that kind of stuff. But I don't think the government has any business, for instance, mandating education and controlling education. No Child Left Behind, terrible law. I don't think the government has any business telling us who we can marry. I don't think the government has any business telling us what we can put in our bodies as adults, as rational thinking adults. So all of these things are things that I'm getting for my tax money that I don't want.
Right. Now we have Tom Shaw apparently on the line. Oh my goodness. So hopefully I didn't screw anything up, because if I did, he's going to correct me. There's nothing worse than being corrected by Tom Shaw. We're actually going to skip this next commercial break, so I apologize to our sponsors. We'll get it right after we get done talking to Tom. Hey, Tom.
Hi, good evening, Doc. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, my goodness. You actually called in and listened. I am impressed.
Yes, I was listening tonight, and I hear you're discussing the roadblock issue.
Yeah. I really like to hear what your 2 cents is, because I've been looking on Facebook and I can't find your post for him.
Well, I'm not actually in favor of them. What I was trying to explain to people is people were trying to say they're illegal, and I kept saying, no, under the Iowa Code, they are legal. It's Iowa Code 321K.1, and it gives all the reasons why the police can set up these roadblocks and what they can ask for if you're selected to pull over at one of the roadblocks. Another bit of confusion is that they're DUI, or as we call them in Iowa, OWI roadblocks. That is not one of the reasons for setting up a roadblock here in Iowa. In other words, you cannot set up OWI roadblocks here.
Not specifically to catch criminals,
right,
but just to screen people who could be criminals.
They can be used for safety checks on vehicles, and they can also say, easy way to put it, if there's a manhunt going on, there's a public emergency, and you have to set up some roadblocks because there's an escaped convict or what have you.
Okay, so what do you...
And so once you're pulled over, they can verify your driver's license information, your registration information, and your insurance, and then they can check your safety equipment, such as your lights, turn signals, brake lights, things like that. They cannot search your car. And what I was advising people to do was to actually print off a copy of that code section and have it with them in the car if they're ever stopped on a roadblock. You know, I would say comply with the license, registration, and insurance. That's the same thing you do on any traffic stop. And if the officer tries to actually search or starts demanding you open your trunk or anything like that, you can say, excuse me, I've complied with everything that you're authorized to do on this stop. As a matter of fact, here's a copy of the law, and hand it to them. And that would just stop everything in its tracks right there and then.
So, Representative Shaw, would you say it's actually up to the citizens who are being stopped to make sure that the officers of the law are following the law? Because that seems a little unfair to me. It seems like we should be able to have a certain amount of public trust in our law enforcement officials that they're going to do things that they are allowed to do, and they're going to not do things they're not allowed to do. I don't personally want to carry around a piece of paper that says what the law is. The Iowa Code is huge.
Well, that's true, but I was talking about this specific issue right here.
Well, okay, sure. So I've got a piece of paper for that issue. What about for something else?
Well, obviously, law enforcement should not be doing that. I was just suggesting if they were worried about it, this is something that they could do.
All right.
But yeah, so law enforcement should not be doing that. They should not be overstepping their bounds. However, just like in any profession, there are those that may want to go beyond.
All right. So your position as a representative is you don't like this law and you don't think it should be out there, but it is the law, and that if you are worried about being pulled over, you should keep a copy of the statute. And if it starts to go beyond what you're comfortable, hand the statute there and say I've complied.
Right.
All right.
Specifically with the roadblocks issue.
Okay.
Is what I was talking about. Yes.
All right. So if you were governor, is that a law?
This is in response to the post that was put on the RPI website talking about film the officer and take notes and do this and do that and this and that. And that's why I was saying, go ahead, just have a copy of it with you if you want. If you're trying to film someone and you're trying to play gotcha with a police officer, if that's what your goal is, if you want to challenge this law, the best thing you can do is to be informed about it and actually have a copy of it with you. And that way you can be very polite if you're filming this and videoing this. You can be very polite about it, and you can challenge the law that way. And in the future, if enough people are upset with what the Iowa statute has concerning roadblocks, maybe it can be changed.
All right. So what if you're a governor, would you try to repeal this law?
It would depend on public input.
All right. So if the public said, "Hey, listen, we're tired of this," you would probably say, "Yeah." Now, but you do agree that it's a constitutional issue, that the Supreme Court has ruled that these kind of things are legal. It's just that you have to be very careful what you do.
Yes.
All right.
However, I am not a judicial supremacist. I don't believe that the Supreme Court is the end all and be all on their opinions. That's what they do, is they give opinions. So whether it's constitutional or not is really up to we the people. And
all right.
If we the people start speaking out against these, if I don't know who put this on, if it was Polk County or I think it was done in Polk County, have people went to the Board of Supervisors meetings and complained about this, if they talked to the sheriff of the county or any of the other jurisdictions that participated in it. I mean, this is something we the people need to get involved with also.
You bet. Now, do you have any advice for the RPI in how to try to heal the schism in the Republican Party?
Well, see, I never had any problem with the post they made. I did, I guess, get a little upset about the comments that were being added to the post.
Okay. I understand.
It just got to be a free-for-all bashing the police. And I just did not think that was appropriate on the RPI an RPI Facebook page.
You bet. Well, Tom, I appreciate you calling in, clarifying everything for us. It's great to have you as a listener and as a friend of the show. We're going to, do you have anything else you want to say, Tom?
No, I just enjoyed listening here.
All right. Thank you. We'll be back right after break. Thanks to Representative Ton Shaw for calling in. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
Bertroche and Associates, how can I help you?
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. You're listening to us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. here on webcast1live.com. Our special guest host today is Phaedra Strohmaier. We've been talking a little bit about RPI, the shutdown, and all these other things that are of interest to Iowans and are impacting Iowans. We're going to talk a little bit next about the debate, or not the debate limit, the debt limit, you know.
There can be a debate limit, too. That'd be great.
Oh, yeah. Like,
yeah.
You know,
get one of those in.
I mean, like the Republicans can only have 2 debates a year instead of like 50. That's not Doc. Dave just screwed it up. Dave, pressure's on, buddy. And I'm not Phaedra. Oh, my God.
Poor Dave.
Dave's going to get himself a beating at the break. That's all I know. No, he's doing okay back there. But what's interesting is, you know, generally shutdowns are good for the economy in general. Hang on a second. Economic indicators actually go up quite a bit after a shutdown, including the stock market. Stock market has been doing what the stock market has been doing for the last 5 years. Panicking over everything. But it has remained reasonably stable until today when I think it was a White House operative, and I can't recall because, you know, I got Phaedra disease apparently at the moment. So,
great.
Great.
Thanks
so,
for naming that one after me.
Yeah, there you go. But I think it was White House officials said, well, you know, we're looking at going into 2 weeks into the debt ceiling fight. Now, everybody talking about government shutdown, everything's running fine. There are people being hurt, don't get me wrong, but the economy for the most part isn't hiccuping along. Suddenly they say, hey, listen, the debt ceiling fight, all you can see is, the shutdown, it's affecting the markets. When in fact, when you actually read the articles, because those are the headlines, when you read the article, they say, well, more people are concerned about the debt limit fight, and 72% of the people do not want the debt limit raised, period. It doesn't matter who you are, Republican or Democrat. It was equal across the board. Do not raise the debt ceiling. So, from my perspective, I'm like, just stick to your guns. Now, from a libertarian perspective, what do you think about the debt limit? What should the two parties be doing, Phaedra?
I'd really hate to see a whole bunch of people all of a sudden out of work, out of jobs, the economy in the toilet, all that kind of stuff, which I think is probably what's going to happen if we don't raise the debt ceiling. I would hate that. But from a more ideological perspective, what I think should happen, no, there's no way we should raise the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is insane. It's a huge number. Pull up the number.
It's 16 trillion or something like
yes.
that.
I read a comparison a friend of mine sent me, because these numbers are way too big for me to really conceive of, really for any of us to conceive of. When you start talking about trillions of dollars, no idea how much money that is. So instead, what this did was remove about 9 zeros from all of the totals and explain that if for an average family household, your income is your yearly income is about $23,000. Your annual expenses are about $38,000. You have $160,000 on the credit card already, and you're adding another $16,000 to the credit card every single day. That's what's happening with our national economy. And I might have those figures a little bit wrong, and I apologize, but I'm doing the best I can here. When you start thinking about it in those terms, in numbers that are much more approachable, you can start to see why calling up your credit card company and asking them to raise your limit is a completely stupid idea.
So basically, it's just basic economics. You can't raise this.
I'm not even sure that's economics. I think that's just simple math.
Yeah, and I agree. Now, I'm gonna point out a post here because I think it's important. Representative Tom Latham, our representative, posted it looks like about 3 hours ago, talking about all the waivers given to Obamacare, because we're going to kind of skip back that a little bit. I didn't know this, but there has been 1,000 individual waivers to unions, big business, along with every congressman, their families, their staff, the Senate, the White House, their staff. 1,000 of these. And
how would one get a waiver?
Well, you see, and that's what he puts up here is they're talking to, Jon Stewart was talking to Kathleen Sebelius, right? She wouldn't answer the questions. So if you increase the debt ceiling, then what that means is further down the road, the next generation has to pay that off. So instead of you paying 28% or a third of your income, your children, my grandchildren, because I'm that old now, are going to have to pay 35, 40, 50% of their income. We're the last generation. I'm the last generation that's going to live better than my parents. And that's what this debt ceiling fight's about. I mean, it'd be like, you hit it right on the head. You go home, you don't call the credit card company and say, hey, listen, I want an increase, right? That doesn't even make any sense. Nobody would have the gall to do that unless they were able to prove they had the money to pay. Well, that's a problem with all the funding that's been going on from both sides, Republicans and Democrats in this together. So how would you resolve the debt ceiling fight? I mean, you're John Boehner. You have this big, well, we'll just say it starts with cluster going on out in Washington, D.C. He's got Ted Cruz breathing down his neck. He's got Eric Cantor breathing down his neck. These are people that are, regardless of how you want to, what you want to call them, they are financial conservatives, hawkish. How would you tell John Boehner to start moving forward and trying to resolve this impasse?
I don't even know. That's part of the problem is at this point, this is too big of a problem for me. I think probably for any average American to really even think about, to really wrap our minds around. I was talking with a coworker earlier today and happened to mention that I was going to be on this show and kind of what it was. And she looked and she kind of thought for a second and then she said, are we still in the, is the government still not working? I said, yeah, the government's still shut down. She's like, oh yeah. And you know, at first that might sound like kind of an idiotic question, like, well, duh. But think about it, it's really not. The average American doesn't really care on a day-to-day basis. As long as I still have a job to go to, a house to live in, food to eat, all of those kinds of things, the problems of the federal government are almost too big for me. And I think that's a problem.
So you think that the average person is just overwhelmed with all the information coming out about all this?
Not only are we overwhelmed, but we don't care. We'd much rather see amusing pictures of Miley Cyrus looking like baby animals.
That was quite amusing.
Well, you know, actually what would have been really great is if we could get that, her performance from the VMAs narrated by like David Attenborough in kind of a nature documentary. If we could make that happen, that'd be great.
You know, Frank can do it. Get your grunt monkey on it. No? All right.
But seriously, we would much rather look at stuff like that because it's interesting. Politics, whatever it might be, is not that interesting to a large portion of the population. Now, to some people, obviously it is, but the rest of us, we're happy with whatever the news tells us. We're happy to be outraged at the Republicans if the news tells us to be outraged at the Republicans. We're happy to be outraged at President Obama if that's what the news is telling us. We're pretty much happy because this is too much. It's too big. It's too overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to fix that. I wish I did. I really wish I did. I think the first step is starting to pay attention, starting to educate yourself, starting to go on your friend's political webcast and force yourself to read a whole bunch of news articles in the weeks leading up to it.
Was really helpful to you?
Well, it was really helpful to me until about 5 minutes before I started talking.
She's got a little bit of mic fright. It's okay. So,
but do those kind of things. Get involved in local politics because that's where it starts. Figure out what your local politicians are into, what they're for, what they're against, what you're voting for. Voter turnout for local elections is abysmally low, and shouldn't be.
Well, and we're going to bring the end of the show right back to the point that Phaedra made at the beginning of the show. You can blame the Republicans, you can blame the Democrats. I like blaming the Libertarians because they really can't do anything to you.
Hey!
Right? But the people that are to blame are the people that don't follow the news, that don't bother to look at the lies that the media in general tell you. Now, you can trust us because it's me and Lefty and we keep each other honest. But there's a lot of people out there have a vested interest in continuing the lies and the misinformation, and particularly on Facebook and particularly in social media. I mean, you don't have to, there's no double check on that, discount or otherwise. So the bottom line is it's up to you, the voter, to vote. It's your constitutional responsibility. You don't have to, you should. Number two, you need to get informed. That's the one thing Lefty and I talk about all the time. I don't mind that Lefty's vote cancels out my vote. You know why? Because at least he's informed. But I get irritated with some of my friends where I start talking about the issues and they say, I don't want to hear about that. Well, why not? It's the issue. You just voted on this issue and you have no idea what it's about. Well, I'm fat, happy, and stupid. I'm just pulling the lever. You can't do that. You have to go out and you have to figure out what your position is based upon the available evidence. So I'm going to agree with the Libertarian. It boils down to our fault.
Hey, now wait. 2 weeks ago, you came out as a Libertarian.
I might have. But I will tell you, the Republicans are such disarray. It's like, honest to God, what is wrong with you people? I don't understand what's happened. And I'm usually pretty good at human behavior. And this one's like, you've done everything you can to make the Republican name a laughingstock. So get your stuff together and go forward. Anyway, I want to thank my very special guest, Phaedra Strohmaier, for stepping in for Lefty. She did a wonderful job. Please let her know on Facebook how great it was. Want to thank our new grunt monkey, Dave and Frank. And we'll see everybody back next week. Lefty's supposed to be back in the saddle. And hopefully something would have happened before then. Again, give us a picture of Phaedra going out because everybody knows what I look like. We have to have. There you go. Anything you want to say? Nope.
Nope.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.